and welcome back to the Mindfulmess Show Podcast. This is Maddie here because my other half, Marina, couldn't make it on the show today because she actually went through a little bit of a fire alarm situation. So she is currently outside in Vienna waiting to enter her building again. So we, how we do it on the Mindfulmess Show podcast, we just make it work anyway. So we couldn't reschedule with our lovely guest today. And I'm very excited that I connected with Kaylor on Instagram a while back, and we got to talking, and eventually I loved his journey and his story from what we talked, and I wanted to find out more, and I would have wanted for him to share more on the podcast. So he accepted, and I'm very delighted to welcome Kaylor Betts. He is an entrepreneur, mental health advocate, and he actually has his own podcast. So he has so much value to deliver to all of us. So welcome, Kaylor.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope your friend is okay. That's for sure. That's an unfortunate incident, but oh well. Let's do it. Just me and you. Let's jam.
Let's jam. Okay, so you are from Canada, right?
Yes, I am from Canada. I'm originally from Edmonton, Alberta, which is, for those, everyone knows the States a little better. So it's just above Montana in the States, and it's near the Rocky Mountains. Now that's where I'm originally from, but I like to, I work remotely. I'm also, one of the things that you miss, which is totally fine. I'm a coach, a mental wealth coach, which is essentially a life coach. And I work remotely. So I try and just chase the warm weather. COVID is making that a little bit tough. We have really, really cold winters in Canada. So I normally go to, like last winter, I went to Bali. But this year it's making it a little bit tough with COVID. So I'm actually on Vancouver Island, which most people I'm sure have heard of Vancouver. And there's an island just off the coast of Canada called Vancouver Island. It's the warmest place in Canada, and that's where I'm currently at because I like the warm weather.
All right, so it's warm out there.
Yeah, like warm for Canada standards, right? So like, to give you an idea, in Celsius, it's like, it typically is in and around like 8 to 15 degrees Celsius right now, in the winter. So not cold, but not super hot or warm or anything.
Yeah, it's definitely not warm, but it's about the same.
The warmer countries, they would say that's cold. That's not cold for Canada.
Yeah, no, I know you guys go minus a lot.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, in the winter we do. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So can you please tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey? Because I know you've been an entrepreneur for many years. And how did you get into that? How did you start? Did you always have this entrepreneurial mindset, or was it something that just kind of happened?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I actually didn't graduate high school. I was 3 credits short of graduating high school. So, it was really difficult. The system that we use to measure success told me that I was a failure, right? So going into the career world, the business world, I went in thinking that I wouldn't really amount to much, right? Now, the only reason why I didn't do well in school is because, I just can't focus for whatever reason. I cannot focus on things I'm not interested in. And none of the things that I was learning in school made me interested. So I really struggled with that. I got out of school, and then what happened is I went kind of on this crazy journey because I wasn't in a good place. I went to Australia for 6 months and just basically partied for 6 months straight. And I came back and I kind of had this rock bottom moment where I'm like, I need to do something with my life. So I became a personal trainer and a personal fitness trainer. And I really got into nutrition. I really got into fitness myself. And here I was a 19-year-old punk. And I remember my first client was a 45-year-old lawyer. And I was just full of energy and just like really passionate about fitness and nutrition. And here I was coaching a bunch of people, one of them being like a 45-year-old lawyer. And I mentioned him because he was my first kind of success story. And he ended up losing 50 pounds working with me. And I'll never forget, he stepped on the scale one day and our goal was to be under 200 pounds. and he stepped on the scale and he was under 200 pounds and he had lost 50 pounds.
Wow.
And he looked up at me. Actually, he was looking down when he stepped on the scale, and he sat down, and I was pumped, and I looked at him and I said, "Hey, are you okay?" And he looked up and he had tears coming down his eyes. And he just said, "I haven't been under 200 pounds in years. And that's what I came here to do." So here I was, 19 years old, and I felt like I'd found my calling. I was like, again, because I didn't graduate high school, I didn't see myself as someone who would be successful. And I was like, wow, I can really add value here. And I just was hooked from then on. Then I went down the rabbit hole of like getting into more the holistic side of things, like not just fitness, not just like counting squats for people, but really getting into well-being and mindset and nutrition and the holistic side of things. So then I became more of like a holistic lifestyle coach. Then I opened up a gym at 24 and had a lot of success in that. I had it for 5 years. We opened up a couple locations. And that was for 5 years. And that's where I learned. That's where I went to like business school. I learned a lot about business, the hard way, the school of hard knocks. And that was 4 years ago that I shut down that gym because I transitioned out of it because it just was not what I ultimately wanted to do. And it was doing okay. Actually, it was, in many ways quite successful, but I just wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. So I did something that a lot of people advised me not to do. I shut down the gym. I lost a lot of connections. It was a little bit messy. It was not great, but I knew I had to do it for me and my mental health. And then I basically had a clean slate 4 years ago. And now what I've been doing for the last few years is really working towards becoming an online coach. And I'm proud to say that that I've done that in the last few years. Have the podcast and whatnot. I have clients all around the world, and I'm working with them on their physical and mental health. And I take people from where they are to where they want to be. And that's what I've been doing for the last year. And I couldn't be more happy. I'm just like in my element. I'm loving it. I'm so fulfilled. And I'm making an impact, and I'm traveling the world, building my dreams.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? No, seriously, that's awesome. Like where you started to where you are now. And I was actually listening to you, and you said that you've learned a lot in your fitness career. Like, what is one of your biggest learning lessons that you've had?
In business or actual fitness?
Well, both, if you want to share.
Sure. So I think, okay, so the first thing I'll say is the business lesson that I really learned is that, we're so socially constructed to think that if you don't become a lawyer or an accountant or a doctor or whatever, that you can't be successful. And look, nothing against those professions, but I got to be honest, and I'm sorry if we have any lawyers or accountants or anyone listening. There are exceptions. Don't get me wrong. There are some people who are very happy in that, but most of those people that I talked to that just went and got their degree because they thought it was a safe thing to do and their parents were telling them, putting pressure on them, which I have empathy for, because maybe I would have became that if I did well in school. But most of them aren't really that happy, and they want more. And I talk to these people all the time. They're my clients. And again, there are exceptions, and there's nothing wrong with being these, right? And they're admirable jobs, no question. But we're so socially constructed to think that that's the only way. And what I really learned with fitness is how successful you can become, how happy and fulfilled you can become, and most importantly, how much of a difference you can make by doing something like being a fitness. Now, look, the fitness world and the coaching world is just like any other, thing out there. The top 10 or 20% are, making all the money and making all the impact, because it's really hard to stay disciplined and make the business. But at the end of the day, you can do something like be a fitness trainer or a coach and be extremely successful and do what you love to do. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? And sure, your grandparents might not really understand. My parents don't even really understand what I do anymore. They're kind of like, what, a life coach? But that's okay. So that's what I would say on the business side of things, Maddie, is like, I've just learned that, like, you don't have to do that, like, socially constructed path of like going to get a degree, getting a job 9 to 5, and just waiting for your 2 or 3 weeks vacation a year. I mean, there can be so much more to life than that if you want. Next would be what I've actually learned in fitness. I honestly, and this is kind of paradoxical, but I've learned from fitness that if you want to change the outside of your body, it starts from within. If you want to change the external, you got to change the internal. And I remember, sure, I had my 45-year-old lawyer who did really well, but I also had a lot of clients who just like, they wouldn't, they'd start, they'd stop, they'd start, they'd stop. And I would wonder, like, why can't they do it? And some people are just naturally gifted with a lot of determination and they get it done. But others, it's like, they need more. And, really, I think that all of the external in our lives, whether it's your body, your finances, your house, your relationships, all of the external is just a projection and a reflection of what your internal state is. Right. So then I really got into like mindset and all that stuff. And once you change your mindset, once you get your self identity to a really healthy place, the external just falls into place.
Wow, that was awesome. Actually, a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are in their early 20s, including me. So for me, it was actually, I did kind of the same. I was meant to start on this very, you know, typical route, let's say. I finished top of my class in university. I was supposed to go do a master's at a top university in London. I had my part-time corporate job set, and I was super depressed. Seemingly like everything was going perfect, but I was super depressed. And I think it's exactly knowing that it's safe to do something else, right? Rather than what society tells you is fine. Like right now, especially right now, when there's so many opportunities, even online, you just have to look. I feel like people don't really look, or they're not really open to look, because there's really so much opportunity everywhere.
In your 20s, that's the time to just jump and try things, get into things. And Winston Churchill says one of my favorite quotes. He says, success is going from failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm. And that should be in your 20s. Just go and dive in, try things, learn. You're either going to win or you're going to learn.
No, that's amazing. But I feel like, this is what I wanted to ask you. What actually fueled you to continue even when you failed? Because a lot of people, they fail once. Or I was thinking, in business, there's always that sort of threshold you have to pass, when you get a failure, it gets bad. Most people quit. But then if you keep going, then the magic happens, but that's why not a lot of people make it. So
Yeah.
how did you have the resilience to keep going?
So there's two answers to this. There's two things. Number one was insecurity. Okay. I truly believe that anyone who, look, I work around the clock. No one is more ambitious than I am. Some people are just as ambitious, but I'm sure there's exceptions, but I work a lot and I've stayed very committed to what I do. And it comes partly from a place of insecurity. And anyone who's super ambitious, I truly believe that there's something innately inside of them that tells them they're not quite enough. So it makes them want to achieve things to validate their self-worth. And that's the place I came from. Look, for things that happened in my childhood that we won't get into, but it gave me a sense of unworthiness. And then also with not graduating high school, right? Like all my coaches and all my teachers said, like, you won't amount to anything unless you do this. And then I didn't graduate. So I had this insecurity inside of like, I need to prove that I'm enough and that I'm worthy. And now I've just been on this relentless journey to prove. Now I've done some things that have made me say, like, that made me think and feel like, okay, I am smart. I can do things. So that part of my ambition has minimized a little bit, but it's still there. It'll always be there. Right. But the other part of it, So actually, just to touch on that for a second, if you are that way, use it as fuel, right? It can't dominate. It can't overtake your ambition, because that's unhealthy too, right? And I've been there. It's got to just be a piece of your ambition. But if it is, use it. It's fuel, it's fire, it's energy. The second piece is I've always just had, and I think this is just something some people are born with.
Yeah.
I just have always had this innate, deep-seated desire to achieve an extraordinary life, right? And if we break down the word extraordinary, it's extraordinary. I cannot tell you how much mediocrity and normal scares me. It scares the shit out of me. I do not want to live a normal, ordinary life. That is just the worst thing to me. And look, I'm envious of people who can be happy living an ordinary life. That's cool. There's nothing against it. But me personally, the way I look at it is we got one fucking life to live. We have one life, and sooner or later, this experience that we're in is going to cease to exist. So I don't know. I'm trying to write the book that everyone's going to want to read at the end of it all, right? And that's going to be my biography. So to me, it's like life is a game. Let's go out and play it in the most exciting way possible. And I just can't understand and wrap my head around how not everyone has that inside of them. Like, it's just like, I don't know, that to me is just so prevalent. So I think that's the other thing. And I will make, you know how 50 Cent says, get rich or die trying. It's not just about money for me. I'm saying get wealthy and abundant in every way possible, or die trying. That's the way I look at it.
I love that. No, seriously. And especially now, like in the times we're living, when you realize how fragile life really is. You know, I have
Yes.
this thought almost every day. I'm like, okay, am I gonna let that fear like stop me? I literally have only one life, and everything could change in 1 second. You could, I'm sorry, but die at any point right now. In general, you can die at any point right now. But now, the probability is even higher. You know, with
Yeah,
what's happening. So that's amazing.
totally. It's really put things in a perspective for sure.
Right. So what determined you to get into mental health and like explore that more? Like, was there an event or something that triggered you and made you, develop and I don't know if you read or went to courses or whatever you've done in that space, but what really determined you to start this journey?
Yeah, there was an event that happened that was basically like 28 years long. I I was in a battle with my mind for 20, like, I don't know, looking back, like when it actually it was a slow transition, but let's call it 25 years of like a serious battle with my mind. I come from depression, anxiety, and that's the other reason why I'm very ambitious, is because when you know the other side, like when you know what it's like to be at rock bottom, when you live your entire life battling with your mind, and then all of a sudden you start to slowly get out of that and you start to actually live in an unimaginable state, you just like appreciate it so much. Like it would be like someone who's in a war torn country. Not that this is the exact example, because this is much more intense than that, but if you came from a war torn country and all you knew was war and not peace, and you lived in fear every day, and then you moved to a place that has an abundance of peace, like, Canada, or, wherever, you move to that place, that person is going to be so incredibly grateful every single day, and they're not going to want to waste a day. So that's kind of like how I feel, in that I've been in a battle with my mind for so long. And then once I started to like read books and get exposed to people like Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and these guys who really have shown me, or showed me, that you can live an extraordinary life, that you are actually way more in control of your circumstances than you think, and you can live in abundance and happiness and joy and peace. And once they showed me that and I started to get a taste of it, I got obsessed with it, because like it's just so amazing. Like I thought I was going to be stuck in that battle with my mind my whole life, but now that I'm out of it, I'm just so obsessive about it. And now that I've gotten to that place, now I'm obsessive about helping other people get there, because that to me is just so incredibly rewarding. What's motivating you to live an extraordinary life and make an extraordinary impact?
Well, I think, you know what you said, I think when you said that you kind of are born with that thing in you, I've always known to a certain extent that I wanted to, make an impact, do something big. I really wanted to be a singer initially. So for me, this was a big thing. I wanted to be an artist. And I still love singing. It's just, I don't think it's my vehicle to that life. But I think it's just that thing. I've always had it in me. I wanted to be, to perform well, to do something that makes an impact. I in high school, I started the school magazine, and I remember that one of the teachers asked me, like, why do you want to waste your time doing this when you have to focus on school and you get good grades? And I was like, because I want to leave this high school and I want to leave like a legacy and I want to leave something behind. And the teacher was
Oh
like,
yeah.
no. And he was like, no, that's bullshit. Like, you should, if you want to leave a legacy, like, finish top of your class. And for me, that was like, I still finished really well. Like, don't get me wrong. That drove me to study so hard and prove to all of them that I could be super good in everything that I wanted to do outside of school and also perform well in school. But I think that's it. I just, exactly as you said, I've always wanted to live an extraordinary life, and I think it's possible.
Well, if that's amazing, Maddie. I love hearing that. You have such a bright future ahead of you. All you got to do is be patient and just keep going, and just not attach yourself to the outcome, because it's like, it doesn't really matter what you do right now. The most valuable thing you can do is two things. And this is for anyone listening in their 20s. There's two things that you got to focus on. Is number one, investing in you. Invest in you, right? Like, that is because, look, sure, you might get lucky and you might build something or do something that takes off and explodes, but that's an anomaly. Like, there's very few people in their 20s that actually build something in their 20s that lasts for the rest of their life. So invest in you, and it's what you get up here. And for those that can't see the video, I'm pointing into my mind. It's what you gain up in your noggin and the lessons you learn. And look, the best way to learn is through action and through failure.
Yeah.
So again, two things: invest in yourself, take risks, and take action. Like, fail forward and just go. You just gotta. And it's funny, Mark Zuckerberg, say what you want about him, I know not everyone loves him nowadays, but you can't deny the guy's success. And he said in an interview, when asked, what would you tell people who are trying to succeed with something, what would you tell them if you only could say one thing? And he just said, he was just like, just go, do it, take action, like, go, learn, fail, pivot, and just take action. We are way too, and I spent way too many years planning and planning. One of my favorite quotes is, the wrong decision on Monday is better than the right decision on Friday. Just make the decision. If you're wrong, you will learn, you'll pivot, you'll get aligned, and then you'll keep going. They did a study with thousands of people in the United States, and they took the top 1%, so people who are very successful in whatever they do, and they wanted to find the quality that every single person had in common. They wanted to find that number one thing. And do you know what it was? They did things quickly. They took action. They weren't afraid to take action. Now, you do got to be careful. There's reversible and irreversible decisions. So if it's an irreversible decision, like having kids, okay, you don't want to make that decision fast. So take away the irreversible decisions. You want to put thought into that. But if it's a reversible decision, meaning, starting a podcast,
Yeah.
well, you can reverse that. You can stop doing it. You can whatever. Like, it's not fatal or final. So that, like, make those decisions quick. And anything, and I know this sounds crazy, but anything you do in your 20s other than an irreversible, impactful decision that has consequences, like, be smart, like, be careful, especially when you party and stuff. Like, don't do something stupid like get a DUI, or if you're a guy, get a girl pregnant when you shouldn't be. Like, be careful with that kind of stuff. But man, if it's a decision that's going to contribute to you learning and potentially getting somewhere, just go, just do it. Let's talk about the haters a little bit, because that's a really important, is so important for, especially to know in your 20s, is, you know, one of my favorite quotes as well too is, the only way to not get criticized is to do nothing, be nothing, and say nothing. So look, if you live your whole life trying to cater to others, please others, make sure they like you, and not have any haters, I mean, that's a quick way to failure, in my opinion, and lack of fulfillment. You're not going to do much with your life. I actually, in a weird way, like when I get haters. The reason why I like that is because I know I'm doing enough then. If I'm not getting criticized, I'm not really doing enough. Because think of anyone that you look up to. Tony Robbins, you know how much friggin' people, like, you'll talk to one person and you'll be like, Tony Robbins, the motivational guy who talks like, they'll, you know, so many people watch that documentary or would go to Date with Destiny and they would be like, this guy is fucking nuts. Like, and you know, or say what you want about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The guy's the most powerful person on the planet right now, at least for the next few months, I guess, until Joe Biden gets in. But say what you want about him, he proves that you can be very polarizing, and to the point where I would say half the world, maybe even more, would like not even cry if he died, right? Like people hate him, but half the people absolutely are ride or dies for him, right? And you can be polarizing and still go very far. And in fact, there's even an argument, and Grant Cardone says this. He says, you know, if I can get half the country to hate me, maybe I'll become president of the United States.